I thought that Arkansas was going to turn Arkansas-Ole Miss into a really great game, and there was some history to show Arkansas could win this football game. Arkansas had shown enough in recent years to be recent games, be talented enough to give Ole Miss a handful. They gave Texas A&M a handful. They were able to beat Tennessee. They gave LSU a handful, and they played really well against Mississippi State, a Mississippi State that is the worst team. Auburn's the worst team. The second worst team in the Big 12 this year, in the SEC this year. But in this game, it got out of hand real fast for Arkansas. Some of this is Taylor Green's fault. As talented as that guy is, man, there were moments when I'm going, sit down somewhere, stop running, slide, or the way in which he doesn't necessarily see it the way that Bobby Petrino has it in his mind. And then when you can't run the football because there's no Jaquindon Jackson in this game, I get how y'all feel about the tailbacks in general, but you can't turn Taylor Green into your running attack. And then he got hurt early. He came back in the game. But by the time we're talking about this, man, it's over. Do you realize Ole Miss scored 28 points in one quarter of football? Like in one quarter? If for those of y'all didn't watch the game, it fell apart real quick because it was 7-3 after the first quarter, but it always felt like it was going to be, either Ole Miss is going to poop the bed or Arkansas is going to find a way to catch fire, but that's not what happened. What happened was Ole Miss caught fire, and they were playing like they were mad in this game. And if Ole Miss continues to play like they are mad, you're going to get Jaxson Dart being gaudy. 25 of 31 for 515 yards with 6 TDs. Say that again. 25 of 31 for 515 passing yards with 6 passing TDs. Okay? There is no Trey Harris in this game, who up until this point had been the most productive wide receiver in the SEC. Jaxson Dart said, it's cool. I still got my homie Watkins over here who goes 8 catches for 254 yards with 5 TDs. Just eating up Travis Williams' secondary. And it got out of hand in such a way that I thought maybe Lane Kiffin was going to take his foot off. And then Arkansas would go score, right? And when Arkansas would go score and it looked like a 3-score game, Ole Miss was like, cool, we get more opportunities to put the ones out here and go to work on y'all and stay on your head at Reynolds. Quite literally the most embarrassing loss that they've had this year, and it's not close. And I realize that's not saying as much as you think, but this was an Ole Miss team that has its back against the wall. This is an Ole Miss team that is staring at a collective who's paying out $10 million to players and going, we expect to make the playoff. What Penn State expects to do, what we're telling Penn State they can do with this loss to Ohio State. Ole Miss had built for this run. Not unlike Ohio State had tried to build for a really great national championship run. They had built for the run to be, we're getting into the playoff this year. We're making history. That's what it is. We're going to do this at Ole Miss. So they shell out this money to go get this defensive line that is outstanding. They shell out this money to keep Jaxson Dart happy. They shell out this money to keep Trey Harris happy. And then they add guys to an already really exciting and phenomenal team. And they drop 2. After the Kentucky loss, you got Lane Kiffin in there going, I don't know how we lost this game. And then you lose to LSU. And then you're up against it, right? Because I don't think they're going to make the SEC championship game. But you're going to need to stack wins, and you're going to need to stack wins with style points the rest of the way to give the playoff committee at least something to think about. Because if you have to choose between Penn State and Ole Miss, and you go by record, probably going to go with Penn State. But if you got to choose between Ole Miss and Penn State, and you look at how they played each other last year in a bowl game where Ole Miss beat Penn State like a drum, you want that to be fresh in people's minds. And the way to do it is drop 63 on an Arkansas team that knocked off number 4 Tennessee in the same spot. Okay? Like that's what it's going to be. I am impressed. I am. Because Sam Pittman had a great line going into this one. He's like, hey, we don't have as much money as people think we do to go spend it on name, image, and likeness for players. And he said, look, we had to go get some blue light specials on our defensive line, and they went and got some Louis Vuitton for theirs. And when you look at what he got out of transfer portal, San Jose State, what's standing, players from those sorts of programs, and you look at where Ole Miss went shopping, right? When you talk about Walter Nolan from A&M, you talk Uman Millen at Florida, Jared Ivey's out there, Suntaran Perkins is out there. You understand. You get it, right? When you got better players, you got better players. And Arkansas got a great stop, goal line stop, gets the ball back to Taylor Green. I'm thinking, first play I see for Taylor Green, they're throwing a pass play on the 1 yard line. I'm going, Bobby, don't do that to this man. Come back. That boy take the safety, and we're off and running, and the game's over, right? I'm watching it because I said I was going to talk about it here, but I'm also watching it because Arkansas fans show up for the show. They enjoy the show. They enjoy me talking about the squad, and I try to keep it real for them. But Jordan Watkins is on your head, dog. 254 yards, 8 catches, 5 TDs. Jaxson Dart was on your head, and he was yelling on the sideline. He was cussing on the sideline. The last time that Ole Miss went into Arkansas, Matt Corral, who finished as a Heisman finalist in 2021, by the way, top 10, he threw 6 picks. Jaxson Dart, that ain't going to be me. I'm going to throw 6 TDs in the same spot where Matt Corral threw 6 picks, and we come in with a W. And that's exactly what they did, man. 63-31, they got this one. We're also looking at an SEC that gets to be a little bit more interesting with Ole Miss in these 2 losses because South Carolina has shown itself capable of beating a team like the one they're going to play today in Texas A&M. They've also shown themselves capable of losing to a team like the one they're going to face at Texas A&M. It feels like they can beat everybody on their schedule and they can lose to everybody on their schedule because they probably shouldn't have beaten Alabama, right? They probably should have beaten, well, they did beat the hell out of Oklahoma. I wouldn't be shocked is what I'm saying to see them beat A&M. A&M is the last undefeated team in SEC play. And that's why I'm bringing them up with Ole Miss because Ole Miss has got to be rooting for South Carolina, for South Carolina in this one. But that's also because, right, they want to get back to some measure of ahead of South Carolina. They want to be on their heads because we got this new rule that came from Greg Sankey and the SEC on Friday saying, look, Ole Miss in parentheses, me putting that there. If we see you faking injuries and you can't provide any data to our national coordinators about what the injury was, like you can't give us a doctor's note, we're fining the head coach $50,000. Do it again, we're fining him $100,000. You do it a third time, we're spinning him for the next game. Shane Beamer put everybody on game with this. It's like, hey, it's kind of funny how many times Ole Miss's defense goes down when the opposing offense picks up a first down or an explosive play and wants to go fast. And then Ole Miss need to issue the statement. And we all hate it. And I did a segment on it because it sucks. And I'm sure that got back to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss had the opportunity to say, look, they don't like us. They don't like us. They don't want us to be any good. I'm watching Lane Kiffin throw footballs down the sideline and discuss Arkansas. I'm like, come on, man, be a little bit less of that. But he's not, right? He's going to be Lane Kiffin the whole way. I think they got a shot here, right? They go out the rest of the way, and they take care of business. Their schedule at Ole Miss, they're sitting at 7-2. They have left Georgia, right? Florida, Mississippi State. So you beat Georgia. That makes this very interesting. I don't know that they're gonna, right? I don't know. It depends on which Georgia team we see, because the Georgia team that I expect to see is the one that played against Texas. But that Georgia team had a quarterback threw 3 interceptions and 175 pass yards. Yeah, I need to see how Georgia looks against a Florida team that feels middling. It's on right now as we're talking. But look, I'm also kind of I want to see what that game looks like, because now you put yourself in a good spot. You beat Arkansas like they stole something. You're on a 2-game winning streak going to Georgia, and that game is going to be 2:30 at the Grove. So you got a shot there. Last game we need to talk about before we get to these afternoon slate games, we'll do a little bit later on with the show, is Miami Duke.